I'm John Little, and this is the ShockCast, broadcasting on a cool and rainy Tainan evening on Sunday, January 20th, 2019. Before getting started, let me remind you to watch or listen to this week's YouTube playlist. You can find it in the playlist section of the Omega Shock YouTube channel, and you can see it down below, in the comment section below, or at the end of this video. Those are the best videos of this past week, and I'm sure that you'll appreciate them as much as I did. Now, let's begin today's program. Daniel's 70th week. There is a deception that weaves its way through our churches and the hearts of most followers of Christ. And this deception is deadly, especially in these dark times. It grants permission for men and women to add to the Bible man-made ideas. It distorts our view of Jesus Christ and our understanding of the last days. It plays a part in putting brothers and sisters in Christ to sleep. Even clear-thinking brothers and sisters have fallen prey to this deception, and I find myself extremely annoyed every time that I hear it. And it's high time that we stopped this foolishness. There are few things worse than deliberately corrupting the Bible. And the two scariest verses in the Bible should give you an idea of how serious Bible corruption is. Quote, "For I testify unto every man that heareth the words of the prophecy of this book, if any man shall add unto these things, God shall add unto him the plagues that are written in this book. And if any man shall take away from the words of the book of this prophecy, God shall take away his part out of the book of life, and out of the holy city, and from the things which are written in this book." That's from Revelation 22, verses 18 to 19. Yes, I know that it is referring to the book of Revelation, but it's also a reflection of how God views the words that He gave to you. If you insert your words and change the meaning of what God said, you are in serious trouble. And if you teach this to others, woe unto you. This is especially true if what you teach modifies the book of Revelation. There are far too many false teachers that proclaim that Daniel's 70th week occurs during the time of the book of Revelation. That will cause you to suffer, as Revelation 22:18 states. And you do not want that. Worse, the sin of being a false teacher will do far more than just cause you to suffer in this life. It will have eternal consequences. I would not want to be in your shoes when you stand before God after this life is over, assuming that you are a false teacher. You might not suffer the punishment of hell, but you will suffer great loss of reward. Please understand that there is nothing in any place in the Bible that gives us permission to insert something that is not there. Nothing. Yet there are false teachers who insert a 2,000-year gap between week 69 and week 70 in Daniel's prophecy of the coming of the Messiah. Please understand that Daniel 9 is about the coming of the Messiah. Why don't people understand that? The coming of the Messiah, the first time, is the context of Daniel 9. And that thought alone should be enough to help people understand that inserting a gap is wrong. And I'm appalled that people feel that they have permission to corrupt the Bible in this way. But there's far more than mere context involved here. When you read the passage about Daniel's 70 weeks, it should be very clear that there is no gap. So let's do that. Here is the full passage, starting verse 24. 70 weeks are determined upon the people and upon the holy city to finish the transgression, and to make an end of sins, and to make reconciliation for iniquity, and to bring in everlasting righteousness, and to seal up division and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy. Verse 25. Know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem unto the Messiah the Prince shall be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. The street shall be built again, and the wall even in troublous times. Verse 26, and after 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off, but not for himself. And the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary, and the end thereof shall be with a flood, and unto the end of the war desolations are determined. Verse 27, and he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week, and in the midst of the week he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease, and for the overspreading of abominations he shall make it desolate, even until the consummation, and that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. Close quote. Daniel 9, verses 24 to 27. According to verse 24, during the 70 weeks, the following was going to happen. Finish the transgression, make an end of sins, make reconciliation for iniquity, bring in everlasting righteousness, seal up the vision and the prophecy, anoint the most holy. And when those 490 years, each week is 7 days and each day is a year, were completed, all of the above would have happened. And did happen. All of it. And it happened exactly as prophesied. Is there anything in that list that applies to the last days? No, nothing. Transgression was finished. Sins were ended. Reconciliation was accomplished. Everlasting righteousness was brought in. Vision and prophecy were sealed up. And the most holy in heaven was definitely anointed with the blood of Jesus. To say otherwise is not to understand what Jesus did on the cross and in the grave and in heaven when he rose and went to the temple in heaven. To say otherwise is to deny what Jesus did 2,000 years ago. Don't people know that Satan has already been defeated? Satan lost when Christ died for our sins, rose from the grave, and poured out his blood upon the altar in heaven. And I am astounded that so few seem to understand that. Yet they persist in saying that verse 27 has not happened yet. How can this be? Well, I know the answer. False teachers have been tricked into believing lies that were written into books by corrupt writers. And they wrote with such force and self-assurance that people believe them. So let's look at verse 26 and 27 more closely, because that is where the 2,000-year gap is. And while we do that, remember the purpose of this prophecy that was laid out in the beginning of this passage in verse 24. So here are verses 26 and 27, but this time I have added a little transliteration from the original Hebrew. Verse 26, and after 62 weeks will Messiah be cut off, but not for himself, and a people of a prince that shall come and destroy the city and the holy place, and its end in the overflow, and to an end war is desolations determined. Verse 27, and a covenant shall be confirmed to many for 1 week, and at half of the week there is a ceasing of sacrifice and offering, and to the wing of abominations devastation, until completeness and destruction is poured on the devastated. Daniel 9, 26 and 27, JLV version, or should I say, the John Little version. Verse 25 speaks of a 7-week period to build the city. And that's where in verse 26 it talks about after 62 weeks. So you add the first week to the 62 weeks. Messiah will be cut off. How much after? Well, I should say not the first week, the first 7-week period. And I'm going to leave it in here because we keep it real here at Omega Shock. Anyway, and then after the 62 weeks, so we're up to 69 weeks, Messiah will be cut off. How much time after the 69-week period? Well, the clue is in verse 27, where he makes sacrifice and offering to cease. Of course, in the physical world, sacrifices and offerings continued, but they had as much significance as the offerings made to the demon in the temple. That is just a few feet from where I'm talking about it, and it's in that direction, if you can see me pointing this out. Here in Tainan. In the eyes of God, the sacrifices were over, done, finished, of no value whatsoever. But verse 26 speaks about a prince and a people and the destruction of the city. And remember that the focus is not on the temple, but on Jerusalem. Who destroyed Jerusalem? The Romans. When? In AD 70. Are we inserting extra time here? No. The Bible is making a side point. It is describing what will happen as a result of their rejection of Jesus. And you will notice that the Jews chose the leader of an insurrection over that of Jesus. That was a very prophetic choice. Remember Barabbas? Since it was the insurrection of the Jews that caused the fall of Jerusalem, that is a very interesting point. In fact, choosing Barabbas was choosing insurrection, was choosing rebellion, and was choosing the destruction of Jerusalem. Yes, I know that God could have made this side point at the end of this prophecy, but the consequences of the rejection of Messiah is a valid point. And remember again the rule set out in verse 24. Verse 24 does not allow you to insert extra time. It describes the time frame very concisely. It is 70 weeks, and that's it. There's no 69 weeks plus 2,000 years plus 1 week. No, it said 70 weeks. But what about the abomination of desolation that Jesus spoke of? And this is where I think some people actually trip over some things. Didn't Daniel speak of abominations and desolations in Daniel 9? Yes, but not the abomination of desolation, singular. Here are the verses where Jesus speaks of this. Quote, "When ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, stand in the holy place, whoso readeth, let him understand." Close quote. That's Matthew 24:15. And Mark 13:14 does pretty much the same thing, except it does add, "Then let them that be in Judea flee to the mountains." Jesus was not talking about Daniel 9. If you need more of a clue, remember that the prophecies about the Antichrist, in terms of Jerusalem, the Antichrist doesn't destroy Jerusalem in Revelation. But Daniel speaks of Jerusalem being destroyed by a people of a prince in chapter 9. Furthermore, the prince himself doesn't need to show up in Daniel 9. A people of a prince are the ones who destroy Jerusalem. But we might be just merely working over the details a little too far. So where in Daniel is Jesus referring to? Well, it's chapter 8, before chapter 9. Then this is the verse, quote, "Then I heard one saint speaking, and another saint said unto that certain saint which spake, How long shall the vision concerning the daily sacrifice and the transgression of desolation to give both the sanctuary and the host to be trodden under foot?" Close quote. That's Daniel 8:13. I know that it's the transgression of desolation and not abomination of desolation, but that should not trip you up. We're talking about, when referring to the words of Jesus, about a verse that was translated from Hebrew to Greek and then to English. And I should point out that transgression and abomination are the same thing in the eyes of God. Every transgression is an abomination. Also, Jesus makes it very clear that we can be tripped up by what he said. And he lets us know this by including the phrase, "Let him that readeth understand." And oftentimes when there's a saying in Hebrew, "Huma vin yavin." Anyway, That should make you stop and think before jumping in with a 2,000-year gap because you don't understand what Jesus did on the cross and in heaven. Again, it's Daniel 8 that talks about the Antichrist, not Daniel 9. Furthermore, Daniel talks about how long the Antichrist will have control of Jerusalem in the following verse, quote, "And he said unto me, unto 2,300 days, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed." That's the verse after Daniel 8:13, and this is verse 14. Now here's where I have some trouble. That number of days, 2,300, is 6 years, 110 days, or 6.3 years. That doesn't seem to fit anywhere, except that maybe it's after the salvation of Israel, after Gog and Magog. And maybe there will be a period of time in which, during this time of Israel becoming a Christian country, in which a man rises up and takes power in Jerusalem, who beguiles those who are, weak Christians, and that this man will eventually be the Antichrist, but he will have a couple of years to rise before he proclaims himself to be God. Then 3.5 years of tribulation follow. Now, having said that, as with anything like this, I'm giving you my own limited view. If you have a better interpretation, please share it with us in the comment section. I'm always open to being proven wrong, assuming that you offer a compelling bit of evidence. So be compelling when you leave your comment. You can get more on how long the tribulation is in a link that I provide. It's actually also in the comment section below. It's called How Long is the Tribulation? And I wrote it in 2017 on December 1st. And no, just to give you a bit of an advance notice, the tribulation is not 7 years. The bottom line is that Jesus was referring to Daniel 8 and not Daniel 9. Yes, Daniel 9 refers to abomination and desolations. But those words refer to more than one person. They refer to a people, a period, an era, a moment in time. Daniel 8, along with Matthew 24 and Mark 13, is referring to a single individual person, the one that we call the Antichrist. In fact, all of Daniel 8 is about the Antichrist. Oh, and one other small but important point here. Again, all the prophecies about the Antichrist show him as keeping Jerusalem intact. Daniel 9 refers to the destruction of Jerusalem done by, as we know now, the army of Titus. That's enough to make you pause just with that. The city of Jerusalem is still standing when the Antichrist rules. If nothing else, remember about the 2 witnesses that have their ministry in Jerusalem for that 3.5 year period. Again, Daniel 9 is about the Messiah, the coming of the Messiah, and what he does, the redemption. It's about Jesus. Daniel 8 and Daniel 9 are polar opposites. But let's get back to Daniel's 70th week. Daniel 9 is about the building of Jerusalem, the coming of Messiah, and then the destruction of Jerusalem by Titus. It's also about the yearning of Daniel for the sanctification of his people. I didn't quote the first part of that chapter 9, but it's full of regret for his sins and the sins of the Jewish people, and he was begging God to forgive them and bring them back, to redeem them. He was earnestly, with all of his heart, seeking the Redeemer. Well, God sends his angel to answer Daniel's prayer, and there's nothing about the Antichrist in that answer. God had already talked to Daniel about the Antichrist in a previous chapter. The focus of Daniel 9 was redemption. So let me repeat what the prophecy of Daniel's 70 weeks was all about. During this 70 weeks, after the building of Jerusalem, the following was going to happen. Finish the transgression, make an end of sins, make reconciliation for iniquity, bring in everlasting righteousness, seal up the vision and prophecy, anoint the most holy. And when those 490 years were completed, all of the above was going to happen, and did happen. All of it. And it happened exactly as prophesied 2,000 years ago. And you can sum it all up in one word: redemption. Daniel's 70th week was fulfilled almost 2,000 years ago. Inserting a 2,000-year gap between week 69 and week 70 is wrong and a sin. And if you preach this false teaching, you are causing others to sin as well. True, a sin of ignorance is far less than a deliberate sin. But what I am saying here should make it clear to you that a 2,000-year gap cannot exist, and claiming this gap is a sinful corruption of the Bible. So, since you are no longer ignorant, because I just told you, you are in direct rebellion against God if you persist in claiming that Daniel's 70th week is in the future. Worse, you have effectively inserted your rebellion into the book of Revelation. And God speaks about this here, and I'm quoting this verse again. Quote, "For I testify unto every man that heareth the words of the prophecy of this book, if any man shall add unto these things, God shall add unto him the plagues that are written in this book." Revelation 22:18. That curse worries me greatly, since I see far too many of our brothers and sisters doing this. If you are a pre-tribber, this is what will happen to you. You will still go to heaven when you die, but you will suffer greatly for your rebellion against God, and then you will stand before an angry God and answer for your rebellion. Please, stop this foolishness and accept the truth that has been so plainly described in the Bible. It's only for your own sake that I speak any of this. Now we get to what I usually consider to be the most important part of the ShockCast, the news and analysis from this past week. I wrote the previous bit on Friday, but what follows comes from all the other days of the week. Although this week I didn't get as much research done as I would have liked. I've been doing work on the studio, which is actually just a rather largish walk-in closet. But it works, I think, so I'm grateful to have it. I'm sure that these videos will get a little better as time goes on. Now, before going on, take a moment to click the subscribe button below and hit that bell to be notified when the next ShockCast happens. Those of you listening via MP3, make sure that you are subscribed to the Shock Letter at theshockletter.com. And there's a good reason to be subscribed to the Shock Letter, since I usually do not have the time on the ShockCast to talk about more than just a tiny bit of the news that I analyze on the Friday post. So subscribe to the Shock Letter and get all the news and links that I analyze for absolutely free every Friday. Subscribing and unsubscribing is simple and easy, and there's no way that I would ever share your email with anyone, period. I'm not in this for the money and never will be. If you signed up and are not receiving the Shock Letter on Friday or notice of this ShockCast on Saturday, check your spam folder. And if you ever stop getting the newsletter for a couple of weeks in a row, let me know. Sometimes email providers block the Shock Letter, and I need to convince them that they should give us better treatment. However, I often cannot find this out unless you tell me. Oh, and another example of why I am not in this for the money is my book, Ezekiel's Fire. It represents a gigantic amount of hard work, but I'm giving it away for free, and you can find it at ezekielsfire.com. Please, read that book. It might save your life. Now, let's get on to a few of the things that I wanted to also talk about this week. This week, we have 8 links to refer to. And the first one is a doozy. It's titled, "Does Society Realize It Is Being Initiated?" And it's a YouTube video. Did you know that 2018 was the year of the witch? Have you seen the incredible amount of witchcraft that is now being taught in movies and on your television screen? Have you seen how open the demonic arts have become? I must confess to you that I haven't. because I don't go to movies and I don't watch TV. I also do not live in America, so I don't see what those of you in America normally see. But this video, it shows a level of spiritual depravity that is so bad that I'm shocked at how far we have fallen. Have things changed so much in the 9 years since Mrs. Little and I have gone? It's as if something or someone has been pulled out of the way. Or maybe it's in the process of being pulled out of the way. And I hope that this is a long enough process for Christians to see what is coming and prepare. I want you to have some warning before it hits you. Unfortunately, far too many of our fellow Christians are under a strong delusion and are asleep to what is coming. This second YouTube link is also vitally important. It represents the destruction of our civilization, and no one is paying attention. At least not enough people are paying attention. It's titled, Art Berman, Exposing the False Promise of Shale Oil. How is it that people still continue to believe the propaganda? Guys, girls, gals, men, women, children, please understand that peak oil is here. The only reason why we do not see it is only due to the massive amount of money that is flowing into the fracking projects that are losing money. When the money dries up, when the loans and the debt is no longer easy to come by, the price of oil will shoot through the roof. When will people wake up? This is just another aspect of the strong delusion that our society is living under. Now, Bill Still did a video, and this next link is not that video, but it is in the list of videos that I provide a link to below. Bill Still did a video on the following article, and it's powerful. The article is powerful also, but what you will read in the link is stunning. This one woman, Kate Millett, did so much damage with just one book. Well, it's truly awe-inspiring. Yes, we were all primed and ready for this book to change the way America thought. But wow! It's titled, My Sister Kate, The Destructive Feminist Legacy of Kate Millett, from Front Page Mag. I was born in the 60s, before Kate Millett's book, Sexual Politics, was published. As I grew, as a young child, I had no idea of this foolish ideology that was taking over America, that was ruining families everywhere. Except maybe that's not completely true. I had a horrible time in grade school as the parents of the unhappy children raised by women who read that book made life unbearable. So maybe my trouble with my classmates came from there. I don't know. Of course, I had a big mouth and still do, so draw your own conclusions. But one thing is clear, many unhappy generations were raised by parents who read that horrible woman's writings. This article reflects upon this tragedy by interviewing that woman's sister, a sister who strongly disagreed with what her evil sister did. It's not the only thing that happened, but it was a lot. Okay, the next link is from a super intelligent man named Jason Riley. And he's speaking in this video. Then he just happens to be black. Being black shouldn't make a difference, but these days it does. And his message is one that every black man, woman, and child needs to listen to. If you think of yourself as a victim, you will never, ever break the chains that bind you. And this YouTube video is titled, Where Are You, Martin Luther King? Another excellent video. To my black brothers and sisters, you have an opportunity to make a difference in your own communities. But it starts with you. It starts with morality and responsibility. It starts with recognizing your own failures and striving to repent and change. This is hard, but you will be blessed greatly for taking up this challenge. Many other nationalities have come before you and struggled with the same kinds of obstacles, but they overcame them. You can follow their example and succeed in the same way that they have succeeded. But it takes hard work, and the success doesn't happen overnight. The Jews, the Chinese, and a host of other nationalities suffered great discrimination, but they overcame by rising above their accusers. Please do the same. Victimhood is a dead-end street that is full of pain and poverty. This next one should make your blood boil, and I remember when Ted Kennedy ran against Reagan. I was in college, and it was 1984, and I had no idea of the treason that Kennedy was attempting to commit. All I can say is, wow. It's titled, Kennedy Asked KGB to Help Defeat Reagan in 1984. It's a YouTube video. America, you are so lost. You have such treason in your midst that it is beyond my comprehension that you would tolerate this. You've destroyed yourself, back in the 80s even. The treason is so dark, so deep, and America just doesn't seem to care. Those of you reading this and watching this and listening, you care. And I feel so sorry for those of you who hold U.S. citizenship, which, such as myself, and wish to try and clean up the foul and stinking mess. But you can't. I certainly want to, but I can't. Please understand that America cannot be saved. It can only be destroyed. Hopefully, the destruction will be limited to being broken up into pieces. But I do not think that we can hope for better than that. And this is so sad. For this next link, I'm talking from a view of history, of how civilizations rise, thrive, and then fall. And a huge part of all that is connected to the effectiveness of the military. And this link points to a horrifying fact, that America is destroying her military. And I can hardly believe that anyone can be this foolish. But unfortunately, the facts speak for themselves. It's titled, Exclusive, Green Berets Targeted After Email Exposed Lowered Standards. Most people do not really know why Alexander the Great was able to conquer the Middle East so quickly. Well, it's very simple. Alexander inherited a strong, motivated, and well-trained military from his father. And when he came to power, he had been hearing of Persian soldiers being drunk and having poor commanders. The standards of the Persian military had slipped to such a low degree that Alexander realized that they would be easy to conquer. So he did. This article is a sign of how badly the U.S. military is being managed, and it's the same kind of sign that Alexander the Great saw in the military of Persia. The morons in charge of the U.S. military are destroying what esprit de corps is left. This is an amazingly stupid situation, and it makes me mad that the Pentagon would promote such imbeciles to general command. It's as if they have chosen to destroy the U.S. military so that the next Alexander can rise to power. Want to bet that it's the Antichrist? And I'm not taking that bet. But no, this is not a conspiracy. These morons have not chosen to destroy the U.S. military. They're just being evil and stupid. And I despise evil. And I deplore stupidity. America is lost, and we did it to ourselves. Of course, as I told all of you last week, I cannot afford to be a patriot any longer. So I need to stop being angry at this kind of horrifying idiocy. But how can you stop being angry at something like this? I would dearly love permission from God to bash heads over this, but this is a part of the judgment of God. Because America has become evil, God made sure that the leaders of America would be stupid. If you doubt me, read your history in your Bible. It's all there, and we did it to ourselves. Therefore, my anger at this situation is inappropriate. The next to last link represents a very bad sign for your economic and financial future. My hope is that you will be ready for what is about to happen. It's titled, Column, Global Economy is Headed for Recession, by someone named Kemp. Okay, you need to pay attention to this, and I'm quoting just a little bit of this article. Quote, in the last 50 years, whenever the OECD's composite leading indicator has fallen below 99.3, there has almost always been a recession in the United States. 1970, 1974, 1980, 1981, 1990, 2001, and 2008. The one exception was the weakening of the index in 1998, when the United States continued to grow despite the weakening global economy in the aftermath of the Asian financial crisis. Close quote. And by the way, I was in finance during that Asian crisis. I know it well. I hope that you understand what this means. For those of you who do not, this means recession. And I'm afraid that this recession will actually be a depression. In fact, it will probably turn into a full-blown economic collapse of proportions unheard of in history for centuries, if not millennia. Okay, this next one is a snapshot of life here in Taiwan and far more lighthearted than what I've just been talking about. And that snapshot centers around the most Taiwanese place on the planet. And you'll never guess unless you've read the article. The Taiwanese version of 7-Eleven. I kid you not, and what you will find in this video, it's a YouTube, will turn your stomach probably as much as it turns mine every time I walk into a 7-Eleven. And it's titled, 12 Crazy Foods Only in Taiwan 7-Elevens, China Uncensored, in a YouTube video. Okay, special treat time. This is the Taiwanese experience. There's almost nothing like the 7-Eleven in Taiwan. It is incredibly unique. No matter what you've seen in America, this 7-Eleven is not your 7-Eleven. And they are showing you in this video the most horrifying parts of it. And yes, the word horrifying actually applies here. But there are some good things about the fact that there is literally a 7-Eleven on every block in Taipei. And yes, this is a literal fact. The 7-Eleven is the most ubiquitous element in Taiwan. They are everywhere. They act like a post office, bank, cafe, grocery, and even laundry service. Do you want to have something sent to you, but not to your physical address? Send it to a 7-Eleven. Want to buy tickets for the high-speed rail to visit your in-laws in Pingdong? And yes, I have in-laws in Pingdong. Order them online and pay for them at the 7-Eleven. Need to send a package to your very best friend in Tainan? And the post office is closed? Send it via 7-Eleven. Have the munchies at 2 a.m. and want some of the most horrible food on the planet? Go to your local 7-Eleven. Although some of the food can be pretty good. Just saying. And yes, Mrs. Little and I have done all those things at the 7-Eleven. Seriously, the 7-Eleven is probably the most Taiwanese thing that you can experience in Taiwan. Although there are better things for you to experience when you come here. But you did say, or maybe you wanted to say, that you wanted the truly Taiwanese experience, right? Okay. Well, that's it for this week's ShockCast. I truly hope that you'll be ready for what is coming. A prudent man foreseeth the evil and hideth himself, but the simple pass on and are punished. Proverbs 22:3. If you find a flaw in my reasoning, have a question, or wish to add your own viewpoint, leave a comment on the Omega Shock website or in the comments section below. Omega Shock readers and ShockCast listeners leave awesome comments, and I value each and every one of them. Again, make sure that you are subscribed to the Shock Letter at theshockletter.com. And for those of you on YouTube, hit that subscribe button and click the bell to get notifications. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. All of that helps you and me get the message out. And as this video ends, you'll see links appear in boxes within this video. Those links will take you to other ShockCasts, a link to subscribe to the ShockCast, as well as a link to the playlist of the important videos of this past week. And you will see the links to that playlist in the comments section below. And don't forget my book, Ezekiel's Fire, at ezekielsfire.com. You need to read that book, and it's free. And so, allow me to close with this blessing from Numbers 6, 24 to 26. Yevarechecha Yehovah Yeshmirecha. Ya'er Yehovah panav elecha vichuneka. Yisa Yehovah panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. The Lord bless thee and keep thee. The Lord make his face shine upon thee and be gracious unto thee. The Lord lift up his countenance upon thee and give thee peace. Numbers 6, 24 to 26. May your pastor give you the words that you need to hear to help you walk the path that God has called you to follow. And Lord willing, we'll see each other next week.